Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Seth, clinical psychologist, and today I'm going to continue my video series on how to manage ADHD better. So, if you are someone who has ADHD, hopefully this will be helpful. Also, if you are someone who is in a relationship with someone who has ADHD, it can be helpful for you too. I always say the first step is insight, gaining insight. That is the most important step to ultimately getting to a place of change. And actually, on my weekly podcast that I do, Insight with Dr. Seth, I talk about that. The importance of gaining insight is the first step in any problem. So, ADHD, one of the things I want to focus on in this video is the role of conflicts, arguments, and fights for people who have ADHD. So, here is the question, and I bet you can figure out the answer. If someone has ADHD, are they more likely to get into arguments or fights or conflicts with others because of their ADHD symptoms? That's right. You guessed it. The answer is yes. If someone has ADHD, it can cause some major conflicts in their relationship life. And I'll sort of explain why that is. So, just to begin, of course, ADHD is what is categorized as a neurodevelopmental disorder. And there are a few different types of ADHD. But the short version is that one can have ADHD that is focused more on attention and concentration. So there is a problem with the person being able to pay good, close attention. There is also another type that is the hyperactive type, and that means there is a problem sitting still with restlessness, being prone to action. And then, of course, there is the combined type, which includes symptoms from both of those. So, I'm going to just begin by giving examples of how ADHD symptoms can cause conflicts and arguments and fights in relationships. Some of the problems include often interrupting another person when they are talking, sort of blurting things out. Another symptom includes not listening, having difficulty listening or paying attention, appearing just as if you are disinterested. Some people may look at this behavior and think, why are you being cold or aloof? Why don't you care? You may be prone to getting up in the middle of events and wanting to leave. You may want to leave. You may stay in your seat, but look unhappy, act irritated, and that causes an argument. You may avoid going to events with someone because you don't want to sit there because you know yourself and you know you'll have a difficult time managing your time there. You may have a hard time planning things, following through on things. You may be forgetful. You may be asked to do something and it may completely escape your mind because of just this overall sense of feeling scattered and distracted. And speaking of distraction, you may get distracted extremely easily. You may find yourself, especially in places where there's a lot of stimuli, a lot going on, feeling as if your brain is almost like a pinball machine, feeling as if your attention is almost like the ball in a pinball machine and goes back and forth and crisscrosses back and forth. These are just some examples of some of the symptoms that one can have with ADHD. And just hearing that list, you can understand so easily how some of those symptoms can cause fights and arguments in a relationship that you have. So, the next thing I want to do is I want to focus on what you can do to help manage these situations if you have some of these ADHD symptoms and they negatively impact your relationship, and you find a history that these cause fights, arguments, or conflicts. It's critical that you know the triggers for the arguments and the conflicts. It's critical that you understand the exact situations that tend to start conflicts or arguments with the person that you are in a relationship with. Examples of this is to ask yourself, does it tend to happen more in the morning when we're, let's say, getting ready to go to work or getting ready to go somewhere? Does it happen in the middle of the day? Does it tend to happen more at nighttime? Does it tend to happen more when we're both just getting home from work, for example? Another Another factor is to ask yourself what type of mood you tend to be in the most frequently when fights and arguments start to develop. One example is it boredom? Sometimes a person finds themselves more likely to get into arguments and conflicts when their mood is bored, when they feel like kind of understimulated and they don't really have a lot going on. And unconsciously, they may actually start arguments and fights just to kind of give themselves something to do or to give themselves an outlet, a release to stimulate themselves because of that underlying boredom. So, is it boredom? Is it the opposite? Is it anger? Is it irritation? Do you tend to be in a more angry or irritable mood? And that mood is part of what triggers some of these ADHD symptoms, and the arguments and the fights then follow. Know your mood. Think back, for example, to 5 of the last situations where you had a conflict or argument with the person you're in a relationship with. Ask yourself, before it became a full blown argument, what mood were you in? Maybe one time you were angry, but maybe a few of the times, that's the pattern. Maybe a few of the other times you were actually bored or irritated. So know your mood. Another factor to think about is to think about who else tends to be in the situation when fights or arguments start to develop. Is it just the person that you are in a relationship with and you? Or does it tend to be when you are out of the house and there are other people around? Are the people strangers or are the people other friends? Think about who is present when most of these symptoms start to get worse. Ask yourself a very basic question. When usually the arguments start to develop, are you relaxed and there's nothing planned for the rest of the day? Or are you in a hurry? Are you on your way to get to something? Is there an anxiety around being late? Either you're nervous that you're going to be late, or the person you're in a relationship with is worried they are going to be late. Is that a factor? So, really take all these examples and really try to get very specific. And if you have to, jot them down on a piece of paper. 5 of the last arguments that you had with the person you're in a relationship with, and write down as many things as you can remember. Observation about what was going on in that situation. It's really important because if you know the triggers, right, we have enough data. If you have found that you just continue to get into arguments with the person you're in a relationship with, you need to understand we have enough data. And now we need to look at the data and figure out what to do with it. Now, in the next video, I'm going to talk about what to do once you've identified your triggers and specific ways that you can prevent conflicts once you feel that they might be starting. If this video has been helpful, you can like this video. You can also subscribe to this channel so that you get the newest videos as they come out. I hope this has been helpful. I'm Dr. Seth, and I wish you the best.